Millionaire Richard Bennett's office was the epitome of modern opulence. Glass walls offering sweeping city views, designer furniture, and an impeccably organized environment. But at the center of his empire, there was a palpable tension that was about to escalate into a confrontation. Lucia Santos, a 28-year-old assistant, stood before Richard, her eyes downcast and her hands shaking. Her advanced pregnancy was starting to show, but she tried not to let it affect her performance at work. There was a pile of papers on her desk and a phone that kept ringing. The pressure was immense, but she did her best to maintain her composure. "Lucia, don't you understand the urgency of this project?" Richard shouted, his voice echoing off the glass walls. "We're on the verge of a major contract, and here you are, messing around with secondary tasks." "I'm doing the best I can," Lucia replied, trying to control the tremor in her voice. "But resources are limited, and we're on a tight deadline." "Your best is not good enough," Richard exclaimed, frustration written all over his face. "Your incompetence is costing us dearly." Lucia tried to remain calm, but Richard's words were like knives. He accused her of not being up to par, of being an obstacle instead of a support. Her eyes began to fill with tears, but she forced herself not to cry in front of him. Richard, merciless, made a dismissive gesture. "I'm tired of this attitude of yours. From now on, consider yourself fired. And please get out of my sight before I lose my temper even more." Lucia's heart sank. She knew that her dismissal wasn't just a work-related matter. It was a devastating blow to someone in her situation. Trying to compose herself, she gathered her things and, with heavy steps, left the office. Each step toward the door was a cruel reminder of the loss and uncertainty that awaited her outside. The moment the door closed behind her, Lucia felt a wave of despair and sadness. The impact of the humiliation was immense, but she knew she had to find a way to move forward. And so, what seemed like the end would become the beginning of a new and difficult journey. Lucia Santos walked through the city streets, the biting winter cold contrasting with the agitation that boiled in her chest. Each step seemed like a cruel reminder of her new reality. Unemployed, without resources, and 7 months pregnant. She had no close family to support, only friends who were also facing their own struggles. The first few days after her dismissal were a whirlwind of emotions and frantic actions. Lucia searched for jobs in classified ads, visited employment agencies, and handed out resumes. Most of the responses were indifferent, some even insensitive. The brutal reality of a society that did not offer many opportunities to those who were desperate was evident. "Sorry, but we're looking for candidates with more experience," said an interviewer, without looking at Lucia. "And, well, with your condition, we can't offer you a position at the moment." She forced herself to smile and be grateful, but each rejection was a stab at her pride and hope. To make ends meet, Lucia began taking on odd jobs as a nanny and cleaner. The workload was grueling, and the constant need to bend and lift was taking its toll on her pregnancy. Yet her determination did not waver. Months passed, and despite the hardships, Lucia refused to give in to despair. In early spring, with a small amount of money saved, she secured a loan to open a small craft shop. The shop wasn't large, but it provided a space where she could sell her wares and hopefully provide some financial stability. Lucia spent her days in the small space, organizing products, serving customers, and trying to expand her business. The shop, although simple, began to attract a loyal clientele. Her skill with her hands and the care she put into each piece attracted customers and helped her build a positive reputation in the local community. Despite the store's growing success, challenges were constant. The work was hard and often exhausting. Sometimes, Lucia would find herself exhausted by the end of the day, but the sight of her unborn son's smile was the fuel that kept her going. Each challenge she faced was a testament to her strength and determination. The feeling of being in control of her life, even in the face of adversity, gave Lucia a renewed sense of purpose. She was far from having a comfortable life, but she was building something valuable with her own hands. The store represented much more than just a source of income. It was a statement of her ability to turn challenges into opportunities. As summer approached, Lucia's shop began to thrive. She had found her niche, offering unique, handcrafted products that appealed to locals and tourists alike. Her tireless effort and attention to detail were evident in every item on the shelves. What initially seemed like a small, hopeful shop was now turning into a thriving business. Lucia decided to invest in her education. With the little money she managed to save, she started taking online courses on business management and marketing. Each new learning was a step towards expanding her store. She applied the newly acquired concepts, refined her sales strategies, and explored new ways to promote her products. Her journey was not without its obstacles. At one point, a major storm caused significant damage to the store. Lucia found herself faced with the daunting task of repairing the damage while continuing to keep the business running. But rather than let it get her down, she saw this as an opportunity to renovate and modernize the space. The store gained a new, more attractive and welcoming look that attracted even more customers. Lucia's hard work and dedication were beginning to pay off. The store became known for its quality and originality, and she was invited to showcase her products at local fairs and craft events. The exposure in the local media and the growing demand for her products resulted in a significant increase in sales. As her success grew, Lucia hired a few employees to help her run the store. This decision not only relieved her of the daily chores, but also provided employment opportunities for others in the community. She began to get involved in local charities, supporting projects for young entrepreneurs and single mothers, reflecting the generosity she had received throughout her journey. Meanwhile, millionaire Richard Bennett was facing a series of financial problems. His empire was being threatened by a combination of failed investments and mismanagement. The situation was getting worse by the month, and Richard found himself increasingly desperate to find a solution. The pride that had once sustained him was now becoming a crushing burden. At a meeting with his advisors, Richard received a surprising suggestion: seek help in the crafts industry, a field in which his former employee, now a successful businesswoman, was a prominent figure. Although reluctant, Richard did not have many options. The possibility of humiliating himself in search of help seemed preferable to the imminent risk of losing everything he had built. Richard made his first cautious approach, trying to learn more about Lucia's work and her achievements. He came across a news story about the store's rise and the positive impact it was having on the community. The businessman, in a mix of anger and admiration, decided it was time to face his own shortcomings and seek a solution to his crisis, regardless of how it might affect his pride. Richard Bennett sat in his office, his face grim and his hands resting on the desk as he stared at the financial reports spread out before him. The financial crisis he faced was undeniable and growing. His companies were facing severe losses, and he found himself without many options for turning things around. The pride and self-confidence that had always been his foundation now seemed like distant memories. His advisor's suggestion resonated in his mind: seek help from the craft industry. Richard hesitated for a moment, resentful at the idea of having to turn to the former employee he had humiliated and fired. However, his desperate situation forced him to consider alternatives that he would previously have dismissed with disdain. After doing some quick research, Richard discovered that his former employee, Lucia Santos, had established herself as a prominent figure in the crafts world. Her shop was expanding, and she had become a respected figure in the field. Richard's pride wouldn't allow him to easily accept the reality that he needed her. However, the growing need for a partner to save his business made him decide to reach out. With a mixture of embarrassment and determination, Richard asked for a meeting with Lucia. The meeting was arranged at a local coffee shop, away from the formal surroundings of their offices and the stigma associated with his request. Lucia, who was busy with her shop and her new charity project, accepted the invitation with mild skepticism, but without knowing the impact this meeting would have on her life. When Lucia arrived, Richard was sitting at the table, visibly uncomfortable. There was a palpable tension in the air, and the meeting began on an uneasy note. Richard tried to be polite, but his words betrayed a combination of desperation and wounded pride. "Lucia," he began, trying to maintain a professional tone, "I am aware that the last time we met was less than ideal. However, my company is facing a severe financial crisis, and I have been informed that you have valuable expertise in the crafts industry. I would like to discuss the possibility of a collaboration." Lucia looked at him with a mixture of surprise and distrust. She remembered well how she had been treated and how much she had suffered after her dismissal. However, Richard's desperate tone and the gravity of her situation made her reconsider her initial stance. "I didn't expect to find you here," Lucia replied, her voice calm and controlled. "What exactly did you have in mind?" Richard explained that his company needed to diversify and that he believed that Lucia's innovative approach and practices could provide the solution he was looking for. He offered a consulting contract and a potential partnership, emphasizing that such a collaboration would be beneficial for both parties, provided Lucia accepted his terms. The meeting ended with a preliminary agreement. Lucia promised to consider the proposal, but insisted that any partnership would be based on mutual respect and fairness. Richard, though reluctant, agreed to meet these conditions. Lucia left the meeting feeling mixed. The opportunity to collaborate with Richard could represent a significant step forward, but the wound from the past was still fresh. She knew she needed to carefully evaluate the proposal and its potential impact on her life and principles. Lucia's office was softly lit, the warm atmosphere reflecting the success and dedication she had invested in the store. Her meeting with Richard Bennett had left her with a mixture of hope and unease, and she knew she needed to approach the proposal with caution. Richard's words still echoed in her mind as she prepared to discuss the partnership. Richard arrived promptly for the second meeting, with an air of seriousness that conveyed the importance of the meeting. He was determined to ensure that this collaboration would not only be a financial lifeline, but also an opportunity for redemption and personal growth. The tension between them was palpable, but there was an unspoken understanding that they needed to address the issues in order to move forward. Lucia began the meeting with a direct approach. "Before we begin, I need to make it clear that any collaboration between us needs to be based on respect and equality. The way I was treated in the past still affects me, and I can't just forget about it." Richard nodded, acknowledging the weight of Lucia's words. "I understand, and I must admit that my earlier attitude was completely inappropriate. I acted arrogantly and insensitively, and I apologize for that. If there is a chance to correct my mistakes and work together, I want to ensure that we do so on a basis of mutual respect." Lucia watched Richard with a wary expression. "I want to believe that you are sincere. But real change is not just about words, but about actions. Let's set some conditions for the partnership. We need to clearly define our responsibilities and expectations." Richard readily agreed. They discussed the terms of the collaboration, including how Lucia could help diversify and revitalize Richard's business, and how both parties could benefit. The proposal involved creating a new line of handcrafted products and integrating innovative techniques to attract new customers. As they negotiated, Richard made a sincere effort to show that he was willing to listen and learn. He asked for feedback on how he could improve his business practices and offered Lucia a fair share of the profits derived from the collaboration. He also agreed to implement changes in the management of his company to ensure a more inclusive and respectful environment. The dialogue, although initially tense, gradually became more productive. Lucia realized that Richard was making a real effort to redeem himself, and that there was genuine potential for a successful collaboration. She accepted the proposed terms, but with an additional clause. The partnership would be reviewed periodically to ensure that all conditions were being met and that mutual respect was maintained. By the end of the meeting, Richard and Lucia had established a new understanding and a clear plan for moving forward. The conversation, though difficult, had paved the way for a reconciliation and partnership that could transform not only the companies involved, but also the lives of both of them. Lucia said goodbye to Richard with a mixture of hope and caution. Although the past could not be erased, the opportunity to work together on equal terms represented an important step towards overcoming adversity and building a more just and collaborative future. Months had passed since the partnership between Lucia and Richard had been established, and the fruits of their labor were beginning to show. The new line of handcrafted products was having a significant impact on both Richard's business and Lucia's store. The collaboration had not only helped revitalize Richard's business, but it had also brought a new level of visibility and success to Lucia's work. During a business conference, where Lucia and Richard were invited to present their partnership, the tension between them had eased considerably. The event was a great success, and the positive response from the audience was a testament to the effectiveness of the collaboration. Sales soared, and both began to feel the fruits of the effort and commitment they had invested. One day, while Lucy was at the store, a messenger delivered a formal letter bearing Richard's company logo. Intrigued, she opened the envelope and found an invitation to a special event organized by Richard, with an explicit request for her attendance. The invitation did not mention the exact reason for the meeting, but Lucy decided to attend, curious about what might be at stake. At the event, held in an elegant event hall, Richard gave a speech thanking the partners and collaborators who had contributed to the success of the new product line. He publicly praised Lucia, highlighting her resilience and crucial contribution to the transformation of his company. The public recognition was a meaningful gesture, and Lucia felt a surge of satisfaction and accomplishment. When the speech was over, Richard called Lucia to the stage. The crowd applauded warmly as she walked up, her heart pounding with a mixture of nervousness and anticipation. Richard handed Lucia a gift wrapped in an elegant box. She opened the box to find a commemorative plaque with a special inscription: "In recognition of your resilience, creativity, and invaluable contribution." However, the most unexpected and touching gesture was what came next. Richard paused and, with a sincere smile, announced a major social project that he and Lucia were going to undertake together. The project aimed to support and mentor young entrepreneurs and single mothers, providing them with resources and opportunities similar to those Lucia had struggled to achieve. This project is a way to give back to the community and help build a better future for those facing similar challenges as Lucia, said Richard. We are here to show that even in the face of hardship, it is possible to turn adversity into opportunity and make a positive impact on the world. The audience responded enthusiastically, and Lucia felt a deep sense of accomplishment and gratitude. The surprise was not only the recognition of her work and dedication, but the opportunity to make a difference in the lives of others. Richard, who had begun their professional relationship with an attitude of disdain, was now genuinely committed to the cause and to personal transformation. At the end of the event, Lucia and Richard spoke privately. They both acknowledged how much they had learned and grown from the experience. Their partnership, which began with a crisis and a need for reconciliation, had evolved into something much bigger and more meaningful. They were not only transforming their own lives, but also positively impacting the community around them. Lucia left the event with a heart full of hope and optimism. The future looked bright, and she knew her journey was just beginning. With Richard's support and the strength of her new partnership, she was ready to face any challenge and continue her mission to create a more just and inspiring world.